Hello and welcome. You're listening to episode 10 of TAIT. That's TAIT, which is short for Talking About Immersive Theatre. I'm Dr. Joanna Bucknell, and this podcast series is concerned with all things immersive and interactive in the theatre. Each month, I go out to meet with immersive and interactive theatre directors, performers, practitioners, producers, and other arts industry professionals to talk about the work that they do and some of the things and challenges that they have to go through in order to bring that work to you. So, I'm going to let you get at it. I'm here at the White Swan Performing Arts Centre at the University of Portsmouth with Gemma Kerr to talk about the immersive performance work she does with Omnibus and Highhearted Theatre. So, hello and welcome.
Hello.
And you're here with your daughter as well, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
What's her name?
She's Clea.
Clea. Oh, so cute. Okay, so Gemma, you studied theatre directing for an MFA, is that correct?
Yes.
At Birkbeck College, University of London. Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about your early career and the journey that you took from kind of being there to then sort of making Highhearted Theatre effectively?
Yeah, I can try.
That's a vast question,
isn't
it?
It's like one of those interviews. No. So yeah, I studied directing at Birkbeck, and I suppose, and before that, I'd studied drama at Bristol, which I think like has quite a, well, at the time it sort of felt like it had quite a strong live art sort of tradition. And then I think, Birkbeck was a brilliant sort of grounding in the language of being a director, I think. And so I suppose combining those kind of being a theatre maker and a director, which are slightly different heads. Yeah. And then I think, after finishing Birkbeck, I think someone at one point told me there's two routes of being a director. Either, you become an assistant or you form your own company. And I sort of don't think that's true, because I think you just try and do the work wherever you can. But I was never very successful being an assistant anyway. So I...
well, being an assistant is challenging, isn't it? Because I was the same when I finished my undergraduate. I would like to have done directing, but having to kind of engage in internships for free and having to sort of be in and around London with very little income, I found...
It's very difficult.
Really difficult.
Yeah, and I think in a way, I feel like being an assistant now might be quite useful, because you sort of get to a point where you forget what it's like to be in a room with another director, and you forget that sort of how your practice could be different. And actually, I co-directed something this summer, and that was really great, because just to sort of go, you do that, and I can do that, and that's cool. But anyway, to go back to finishing Birkbeck, I suppose I did, some jobs, I think. And then we founded Highhearted in 2010 because there was a piece of work we wanted to make, I think. I'd got really interested in psychogeography, which I think is a bit of a hangover from Bristol, because I remember everyone being quite interested in that.
Absolutely.
And I remember I did a project just on my own, which was sort of creating maps of London. Because when I first moved to London, I was really obsessed. I really wanted to go on a tour bus. And no one would go with me on one, because it was like, that's such a shit thing to do. I was like, I really want to go. And then by the time I sort of thought, I could go on one, I suppose, I realised that the places that were interesting to me were definitely not kind of Buckingham Palace or Tower Bridge. But I was really interested in the sort of emotional paths that we create. And so I sort of did a project that involved a lot of maps, like laminated on tables, and getting people to sort of label places that are important to them, like so that, the bus stop where they had their first kiss with their partner, or for me, I just really clearly remember this big bin on Western Street where I just found out I hadn't got a job I really wanted, and just like cried behind it.
Oh, no.
So that's like imprinted on my map of London. And then creating little kind of tours from that, and getting them to tell people about those guides. So that sort of started as a project, and then me and Marcelo, who is the other half of Highhearted, I think at some point decided to take those ideas and turn it into a piece of theatre. So by its nature, I suppose, it was always going to be promenade, outdoors. And also I suppose we couldn't afford to hire a venue. So
this is often it, isn't it? It's the pressures of kind of the kind of training that we do. And it's interesting actually, because lots of people I meet now who are doing PhDs on kind of immersive or site-specific or site-responsive work are working out of Bristol, which I think is really interesting, or tend to have a relationship with Battersea Arts somewhere along the way. So there's these kind of really clear, almost, in a way, there's kind of like sort of psychological spaces where these things are coming out of.
Yeah.
And these traditions are coming out of. And Dartington, I think, is a part of that too, but obviously that has...
That's actually, because I'm thinking I've
now.
listened to some of your podcasts and you've mentioned forced entertainment, and I wrote my dissertation on forced entertainment.
Did you?
And realised halfway through that my dissertation tutor had been Tim Etchell's dissertation tutor, and he hadn't told me before then.
Oh, wow.
And it was something like, all I need to, and I remember just going for like weekly meetings, and I would just sort of sit there and vomit and stuff, and then Baz would say a few like very intelligent things.
Baz Kershaw,
like a very, genius gnome, and I'd go and like rewrite the whole thing.
Write it down. Baz is lovely as well. I've met Baz loads of times now. So he's been doing the Meadow project at Warwick University. So
he was wonderful.
And I think it is a lot of those influences, because Four Sense used to come into Roehampton quite a lot when I was a student and do workshops with us. And they produced a lot of work at Riverside Studios in that time. And Riverside seems to have stopped kind of making or hosting that kind of work.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But when I was there, every other week I was at Riverside Studios or at Battersea.
I remember seeing Forced Entertainment.
Or the Lyric as well. We were always off in the Lyric because Roehampton's so close to all of those things. But it's interesting how these things seem to be bubbling out of,
isn't it?
Whether it's related to space and place, or if that's related to people who are associated with those places, I don't know. And I think there's literally a whole PhD just in that kind of mapping of these sort of cultural phenomena and where they're sort of bubbling out.
It's almost just the books that happen to be in a library, isn't it, actually? Because I mean, like, having not known Baz's, and because I never actually like worked directly with Baz until my dissertation, but obviously all of those kind of imprints must have been laid somewhere in the department.
Just kind of there. And I think I've only realised very recently as a lecturer how much influence you have in the things that you choose to expose them to, and the things you stock the library with for them. And it just astonishes me daily that has so much influence. But of course, when you reflect on your own career, I feel like, of course it does. Of course, people you encounter who expose you to new things, or expose you to thinking about things, or practicing
especially
in a different
that
way.
age as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because I remember. Sorry, I'm not talking.
No, it's fine.
Feeling quite frustrated at Bristol, especially towards the end, because I felt like the tutors didn't really talk much about their own practice, or at least as much as I really wanted. And they were all practitioners. And so kind of doing the MA was I mean, entirely a completely different experience, but was led by a wonderful director who, was a brilliant kind of leader to all of us, but also just talked really honestly about being a director. Which is great. Helpful. And in a very kind of like nuts and bolts way. But we had just had all these amazing people, weekly just coming to sort of shower.
Deliver.
Amazing. And we were just,
And at that age, you're such a sponge as well, aren't you? Just, you kind of just absorb all of these things, which is amazing.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Like, you write down some stuff, but actually, you can't write it down. And actually, I mean, it is, you have to sort of trust that actually the important stuff, the stuff that's relevant to you, will stick.
And I think the things that stick and the things that kind of resonate with you are then what are the drives for that work, isn't it? And I'm saying you find ways of enabling making the work you want to make in whatever ways you kind of can. Especially within in a context where there's, dwindling funding, where there's dwindling access. It becomes hugely challenging.
And I think, and I suppose those constraints can be really valuable. I mean, I always sort of try and avoid saying we just couldn't afford somewhere, so we started doing work outdoors, because I think, I think it was a bit more thought through than that. But there was definitely an element of that.
I constantly have the challenge now of bums on seats become a huge thing, because I do mostly one-on-one or small things.
Oh, cool,
I can see maybe one or
ridiculous
three audience
model.
at once. And it's just like people are like, how do we make money from this? And I'm like, that I don't know yet.
No, and it's so hard from, I think the work that we've done, which is really, I think, we've like the more we've done it, we're really very site specific, aren't we? Very site responsive, so it makes it impossible to take it anywhere else. To tour it effectively. I mean, actually, with the first, I mean, with the first people with Lovers Walk, which was the first thing we did with Highhearted, it was sort of like the best, kind of the cleanest, most marketable piece of work we did, because it was just a two-hander. And we started it in Brighton, at Brighton Fringe Festival. And then we did it in London. But that, so we rewrote it and kind of because it was all of then, it was about a tour guide.
Yeah, so it's always about having to kind of, and that actually brings me to the thing I was going to ask about. So in 2010 you founded Highhearted with Marcello de Santos. Marcello. In order to create original work for use on your website for non-conventional theatre spaces, placing an emphasis on narrative and new writing. So can you explain to the listeners a bit more about Highhearted and kind of what you were sort of working towards as a company? I know you talked a little bit about that, but if you can expand on that.
Sure, I can try, certainly. I think we sort of hit on that definition probably not in 2010, but a little bit after. I think Marcello is a writer, I'm a director, nominally. For Highhearted, we've occasionally written together in a sort of combination of ways. And I think we're both interested in being told stories, and a story. But we're also really interested, I think, in what happens to audiences and to the relationship between audiences and artists when you take them out of a theatre building. I think I got quite tired of watching theatre in dark spaces and sitting still. Some theatre I love sitting in a dark space, but it felt, I don't know. I mean, even when I did performing, I think the only kind of acting I felt that I was sort of doing honestly was where you were talking directly to the audience. And I just found it quite difficult to sort of believe in theatre and think it was honest and could tell a story. Where you're just ignoring the fact that the audience is there.
And for me, that it's become, and then the more it goes on, the more I find that ethically problematic to ignore all these people sat in the dark watching you. Feels deceitful in a really difficult way.
Yeah, and I think more recently I've thought on a wider level, because there is a problem, like we want to kind of get new audiences into theatre, and I don't know why anyone would want to go and pay a lot of money to go and sit in a dark space and be ignored for 2 hours. But yeah, I mean, so I think it just sort of felt like this is what I like about theatre. This is what is different about theatre. And it it didn't necessarily have to happen outdoors, but that outdoors was where we started making theatre. And I suppose, I mean, interestingly, when I have been thinking about this, I don't know quite where immersive sits within Highhearted or Macbeth.
Yeah, I was going to very much come to that.
I'm sure
it's so difficult to think about.
Yeah, but I mean, I think with the work that we did, certainly to start with Highhearted, we were interested in how we could change a space or a place, and get people who knew that space to look at it differently. So we were interested, I suppose, in taking people to, somewhere like the Brighton seafront, which is kind of iconic and everyone knows, and then later around in London to sort of Tower Bridge and that sort of London Bridge Southwark area. So places that people know really well, but actually taking them to the bus stops and the bins around the back, so that they, looked at a space in a different way. Yeah. So I think our work has been not about transforming a space, but I suppose reconfiguring a space through the bodies that exist within it and the stories that are being told.
So it's that kind of reframing of and a recontextualising.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than a transformation.
Yeah. And I think, a later piece of work we did that was, I think, seen by about 3 people in the rain in Ruislip. Although it was a lovely piece of work. It took place in a sort of historic manor farm.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I felt like watching that, I was like, actually, it's really important to give people the space to look at their surroundings. That becomes part of the performance as well.
Yeah,
and you have this amazing stage, which always becomes different things, because obviously in Brighton and in London, we were constantly kind of surrounded by people, and there were people right up against us, and sort of would gain people, because these were like promenade pieces that were taking us around, and people would watch for a little bit and go away.
Well, you create that kind of doubling as well, don't you? Because you have kind of that performative frame that you're using within that space too, but also that's embedded in people going about their kind of their everyday. And although it's not about transforming the space, it has the potential to be transformative for the participants, the performers, and for people who might encounter that accidentally on their way home from work.
Yeah, no,
for
exactly.
example.
Yeah, and I think if you're sort of just changing the perspective on a place is sort of what we're hoping to do. But we I suppose also because we like narrative, we like stories, and you know, we sort of knew writing. So I suppose also another thing that I think at the time, I don't know when immersive theatre started, but when we did it, there seemed to be like a little sort of bubble of like suddenly like, oh, everyone's doing work outside, and obviously, you know, Punch Drunk, I suppose it was around that time. But I think we were always like, we take the audience on the same journey. There's one story and everyone's going to go on it together. And I think that, again, was probably just, this is how it works for us. This is the only way we can sort of logistically tell this story. But then there's something I quite like about that, sort of, that, let's, you know, it's a shared experience and we're all going to go on it together. And we always thought after Lovers Walk that it could have been quite an effective sort of live dating experience.
Yes.
Well, because everyone, like at the end, was really happy and believes in love, and it's like
now to the bar. Well, obviously, that was one of the first pieces of work you made as Highhearted, wasn't it? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? So you've talked a little bit about it, but can you be a bit more explicit about kind of, without spoilers potentially, of course,
about Lovers Walk?
Yeah, about Lovers Walk.
It was the story of a couple's relationship, told through the places that were significant to their relationship. But you met Matt and Rosie, who were two actors called Matt and Rosie, who weren't going out. And they introduced themselves as tour guides, as Matt and Rosie. Okay. And they took you, and everything was told in the third person, I think. Okay. So they took you on a journey. In Brighton, it started in the Pavilion Gardens. And took you sort of round the lanes and then onto the beach. And as it was told, the idea was that they sort of got more, the storytelling broke down a bit because you realised they were telling their own story. And so they became more emotionally engaged. And it sort of started, you know, this is the meeting and this is where they had their first kiss, and then there's like a moment of betrayal and, you know, heartbreak, I suppose, and then it all ended emotionally, like on Brighton Pier, or just at the bottom of Brighton Pier. And I remember thinking, like, afterwards, because all four of us at that time were in very happy relationships, and I was like, I think this piece of work really came out of, or, you know, it would have been very different if you know, we'd been in different places, or, you know, and because like reading it now, like, it's very uncynical. Like, I don't think I could write that now. I don't think I believe that now. Even though I do love it as a piece of work, it felt very kind of buoyant. And
how many people did you kind of take around in a group? Did you kind of repeat it as well over?
I think we would in Brighton. We did it. I think we did it like twice a day. 3 or 4 days a week, I think. And we would take, I think it was about, I don't even remember, I think probably about 20, 25. It always expands. I mean, you always aim for like 10, 15. Yeah. But then actually, I think we did find that when you can up the numbers, and it actually helps before it gets to ridiculous, because people kind of huddle in a bit more. Yes. And because I think with that sort of promenade work, the main fear people have is that you're going to act at them. Yes, exactly. Or that they're going to be singled out to do something. Absolutely, yeah. And they don't want to do that. And I don't want to do that. No. I hate to act. Nobody wants to play. No. No, don't pick on me. I don't want a fourth wall, but I don't want you to look at me. But yeah, I think always we would pick up probably a few people along the way. And it can become, and this is the interesting thing about the work, isn't it? And I'm quite interested in the way duration and endurance are a slightly separate thing. And although for the audience it's not duration, or it's not kind of endurance in that respect, actually because of the way you have to operate when you're working with small audiences like that, actually sometimes it can be quite grueling. I mean, I do one-on-ones, so... Yeah, that must be quite intense, yeah. Even if I see 10 people, that's probably taken 4 hours, and that's 4 hours solid. And then there's a queue still of 30 people wanting to... have a go. You're like, it's just me. Yeah. And so actually for the performers it becomes the repetition that starts to happen in that must be something that's really, I'm really interested in what that does to the performers and what that does to the nature of the storytelling as well, and to the experience once it's been kind of
that repetition, but both a difference every time.
Yeah.
And so I have no answers to it, but I'm
No.
very, very interested in.
No, it's interesting. I mean, it was
That
interesting. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, and because it's like physical as well. You're like going on a walk as well, and you know, sometimes it's raining, and you know, they have to sort of, as you know, they're also, because when we did that, we had no ushers or anything. You know, we were literally like, we're here, you know.
We're here.
So they're having to kind of, you know, keep the audience together and guide them. And yeah, and if you're doing even, I mean, that was only an hour long, that show, but
yeah,
if you're doing, and then you have to kind of go and sit down for half an hour and do another.
And then do another.
It is, yeah. And also always, you know, battling different things. I mean, like, I remember one day in Brighton there was just a huge promotion for like an energy drink, you know, right next to it. It was just like huge speakers.
Yeah,
it was like
constantly fighting against that going.
Yeah.
Oh. And that's one of the challenges, I guess, isn't it? Is the moment you take something outside of that kind of performance or theatrical space, there are always, you never quite know what you're going to be kind of coming up against, and it's also quite impossible to predict. I mean, there are some things you can manage, can't you, in terms of how you think audience might behave in certain ways, but there are like that, things like that happen, and you're just like, okay, so we're just going to have to work around this.
Yeah, and you know, like, you've got literally no technology of any kind. We've always been very, like, you know, pared down.
I'm very analogue as well, because for me it is about, and the one thing that's always, even though I'm not very interested in kind of theatre per se anymore, I would say, the one thing that has stuck with me in my work, and most of the people I've spoken to, is the liveness. It's the liveness that's important, and it's the real engagement of people coming together in that space, in that moment, whatever that space or that moment might be. And which is why I think that the ignoring is so problematic against that. And also, the Victorians kind of made that the dominant form for us, and it hasn't always been that either. So it's so strange.
No, it's funny actually. Yeah, it almost feels like there was this, you know, when you sort of, I mean, that was why, you know, I'm sure talk about Macbeth, but that didn't feel strange. But so I mean, there's sort of was this strange blip where we just.
But it's become this kind of dominant sort of mode, hasn't it, of just sort of delivering to people who are sort of passively.
Quite indulgent.
Receiving it is, very much so, but theatre hasn't always been that way. And
no.
This is one of the things I really struggle with the students. I'm like, you consider this to be kind of like the dominant form. Like actually, for thousands of years, it was not like this. This is a really small moment in the history of theatre.
Yeah, why was it so powerful?
And, why has it been so powerful? And why has it kind of persisted throughout our kind of culture in the West, which I think is very strange. But I think there are loads of forms now that are challenging that. And I think that for me is exciting.
Well, definitely. I mean, there's like interaction, I think, has become.
So after Lover's Walk, you went on to do Births, Marriages and Deaths. Can you tell us a little bit about that piece of work? Yeah,
this was the one in Ruislip on Manor Farm. And this was, it was a kind of commission. Although, I mean, I think we only got 2 performances of that in the end. But this was the first piece working with a few different writers. So we worked with myself, but also Clara Brennan and Nikki Williams. And it was, I suppose, we realised, I think this was the beginning of a couple of pieces of work where we were like, you can do a sort of historical, not really, I don't know, it was a sort of, because this was a commission. We're like, okay, there were lots of stories to tell here, so there's a kind of nice angle on that. But I think we've always wanted to kind of put a bit of modern in, even when it's historic. But that was, we sort of told different stories of women. I think it became all about women who had lived in Ruislip, because Ruislip was, I think, when the Metropolitan line was first built. So it suddenly became, and that's like at the end of the Metropolitan line, and this was the first. I'm remembering my really ancient research. And so it was kind of opened it all up, and it was suddenly like you can live in the suburbs but still like going to London. But it does feel very, it's quite a strange place in itself. I suppose. It's just, it's a very long way from London and that cultural hub, I think. But I suppose the thing that was nice about this piece was we had this brilliant natural stage, which was a sort of enclosed park almost, because they have the manor house and it's open, so people, it's open to the public, but it's always quite quiet, and it was all, and it's beautiful, and there's kind of 16th century barns and the manor house and then beautiful views, So it meant that we could sort of play around with having, you know, sort of a couple of actors there, and then sort of that perspective of seeing someone in the distance, which obviously was like impossible in central London. And that was something I always wanted to kind of to sort of slightly engineer a view. And that was, so that was the sort of thing that I think felt different.
That's something that's very British, actually, isn't it? All of our major cities, you don't have to go for very long before you kind of encounter kind of that sort of countryside, I think, which is so nice. We have these kind of huge urban sort of developments, but very quickly. Well, like with the tube, you can go in several directions on the tube, and at the end of the tube, you'll find this kind of glorious, beautiful kind of countryside.
I mean, it's amazing.
Which
it's
is
really
I'm always astonished by it, even now. And it's kind of like even just literally 40 minutes out of the city, and you're
like
in
National Trust.
You're in, you know, parklands, which is I always just think is astonishing in the UK, and I kind of love that about like my parents live near Cambridge, so literally 15 minutes driving out of the city, and you're in Fens.
It's really amazing, isn't it?
And so I think that's really lovely as well, and that linking it to that kind of history of the development of kind of women being able to kind of access London and also access that kind of suburbia as well. I think is really
I mean, I think the kind of the sort of strongest stories in that narrative were the kind of
She's so cute. She's so cute. It's fine. It's actually fairly appropriate.
With the sort of like stories of, you know, housewives trapped in suburbia and oppressive husbands, and you know, which so actually, I mean, that was 2011, I think. So I feel like actually, you know, since then, like there's so much feminism or there's so many blows to feminism, I feel, in the past year. So there's a sort of a sort of firing, I think, of that. But I think we were just, you know, it didn't take this to make me a feminist. It was
there's a really odd attitude at the moment, isn't it? Well, feminism was one, but actually I think there's been some huge erosions of some of the kind of the major wins of that very recently, and I can only see that actually getting worse with the current context of Brexit and Trump. And
I find it quite worrying and scary.
Very worrying. And I think a lot of young people feel very apathetic about it. They feel very alienated from the term feminism because they don't really have access to kind of what that actually might mean. And I'm always saying to them, I'm like, it's just about equality. I'm like, if you believe in human rights, it's just about everybody being treated with dignity and respect and the same. Who wouldn't want that? It's I don't know how that rhetoric's become almost poisoned for that generation.
And it feels like, I mean, I remember feeling like as a sort of strident 17-year-old kind of going, if you're not a feminist, you're not a socialist. And then at some point kind of going, oh no, but no one wants to be a socialist.
Oh dear.
This, you know, it's a kind of capitalist ethic that is really taking over, and that is quite anti I mean,
human rights, really,
anti-human rights, and, you know, and because I think it's sort of, I mean, that realisation, I think, quite recently, I was like, oh, it's not, like, people don't think it's a bad thing to be really, really capitalist anymore. I always thought it was.
Yeah, me too. It's just an intrinsic, my genuine attitude is kind of like, this is something we need to push against.
Yeah, or find, you know, just at least find a different way. And then suddenly go, oh, no, everyone thinks this is really great.
Everyone's happy with that.
And, like, if you're a good capitalist, then that's good. So, I think, that was it's been a bit of a head shift to me. Just going, I'm not, you know, I've always thought of myself as fairly, you know, mainstream, and then you're like, no, I'm really at odds.
I know, the last year has shown me that maybe I'm not very much in touch with the general kind of attitudes and ideas, because it's shocked me.
No, I felt really, I mean, since, I suppose, I mean, 2010, I suppose then actually, with that, the election then, I remember thinking, well, there'll be a mutiny.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
There'll be a revolution.
There'll be a revolution.
Of course there will be.
And
you're just waiting for it. And then, like, oh no, like, actually, no. And then it's like since then, actually. So it's interesting that that's when we started.
I know, and since then it's just kind of escalated and it's basically spreading across the whole globe. And you're like, what's going on?
I was talking to someone recently who was like, I think it was just after Brexit as well. And he was like, I've been spending lots of time with like radical socialists who are kind of slightly advocating that maybe it's good for society to go through a sort of dose of really like extreme, like right-wingism.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like we've been doing that for a while, though, and it's not doing any good. So let's not. It's like let's not do that. I grew up
in the Thatcher era, so and as a liberal arts person. I feel we have had that for since the 70s.
Really, and it's kind of like, I think we were sort of just emerging from it. But
Me
No.
too. I really thought we were, and now we're kind of been plunged sort
Yeah.
of back into that space, and I think it's actually going to be worse.
I think so.
now.
Yeah, I think there was a moment where I felt like, wow, let's challenge. This is a kind of great opportunity for artists, but because
Yes.
like the world is so different, you can't do it
No,
in the
I
same
know,
way,
I
because
know.
you have to sort of buy into the capitalism in a way.
Yeah.
But I do think that's why, like, the younger generation, it sounds really patronising to talk about them, but are hesitant to kind of identify as feminists and
Yes.
socialists,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
because it's not the world they've grown up in.
No,
and,
not at all. And I find fundamental things being challenged. I thought I genuinely believed in democracy, and now I am questioning what democracy might be, and are there alternatives to that as well? So it's this really, over the last 2 years, I can't believe how much I'm just kind of going, I need to completely reconsider and challenge some of my basic assumptions here about people and life and what I consider to be valuable and worthwhile.
Yeah, and actually, and it's sort of, the theatre industry itself can be quite, capitalist and isolating and alienating.
Brutal,
So it does, and now, I suppose with the kind of, I feel like all I'm doing at the moment is looking for funding, and it's,
Me too. I spend, and it's the same in academia. It's this weird shift. I spend 60% of the time when I could be making or writing, applying for the possibility of making or writing with very little chance of success as well, because it's so competitive. And I feel like they've pitted us against each other, which was a kind of clever thing to do.
Oh, yeah, very clever.
Instead of us working against them, now we're all competing with each other to get the tiny, tiny scraps that will enable us to do work. And it's challenging, I think, to keep a positive. But I'm very belligerent, so I don't care. I'm going to make work, and especially because I make one-on-one too, so I can make my work whenever I want, wherever I want, and I'm going to.
Yes. Yeah. No. I think it's really
Despite these things.
I think you have to carry on making it, don't you? Because otherwise you can get very ground down.
Yes.
But I suppose I think I stuck with it this long, and I've never
exactly.
made any money.
And there are ways, aren't there? That's the thing. When you come under pressure like that, you become creative and finding ways to enable things and make things happen.
And the conversations get more interesting as well, and more sort of passionate, I suppose. So.
And actually, in some ways, although we're competing for funds, I actually think that is a separate thing. I think the artistic community at the moment is actually quite kind of cohesive.
Yeah, I think it is actually.
Because we're all in shock, I think. So we're still in this space of going, I had no idea what's going on. And I looked at, because I was thinking, who did it? Because when I looked at my Facebook feed and all of that, I was like, but then I remember I surround myself, of course I do, with academics and other practitioners, because that's the circles I move in. I thought, so of course it's your own worldviews are being constantly reaffirmed by generally the other people that you choose to associate with, and who reaffirm your worldviews.
But it's funny, isn't it? Because then there was a sort of almost backlash against that after like Brexit, and I remember on social media lots of people say, all you fools who say what just happened, like you need to go out and live in the real world. Like, I really do. But I think they're wrong. I don't want to have to listen to that, and they're not going to convince me. No. And I know that's what.
Well, there's no discourse going on, and that's what worries me the most. Actually, it's just sound bites and kind of rhetoric rather than actual discussion.
And people feel like they kind of cling to their points of view very defensively.
Ardently,
yeah.
So that is challenging, but I think we are fortunate in some respects, because experience is the one where you can. I think discourse has become difficult, but I think sometimes people can be changed through the way they feel, and I think performance has a real way of changing how people might feel.
I think
and it's that going back to that reframing thing again, just by potentially giving someone the space to reconsider, reframe, then there is that transformative, which of course Baz argues is radical potentially. So I hold on, that for me is what I hold on to. I'm like, even if one person feels that they want to reevaluate or reconsider something about themselves, that's enough for me, that kind of radical potential of whatever they might reconsider or rethink about. If I've given them the space or the opportunity to do that in their lives, I think that's something that I kind of can hold on to.
I think you have to believe that theatre can change the world, and in that way, not in a sort of, it might make one person look at something a bit differently, and that's.
I think when you
great,
say that, people kind of think Brecht, don't they? And these kind of huge, grand, let's
Yeah.
make everybody kind of socialist. And
Yeah.
actually, it's much more everyday and mundane
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah.
And the possibility for change happens one at a time.
Yes, yeah, and sort of gradually, you know, over little bits.
Yeah, over little things.
Yeah.
So after Births and Marriages,
Yes.
you did Cheer Up, is that
Cheer Up.
correct, at the Playhouse, which was
Yeah.
a slightly a shift in
We went
approaches.
inside.
You went inside, exactly.
Inside.
So you kind of shifted from
Yeah.
this kind of promenade into that kind of theatrical space.
Yes, although it happened everywhere in the theatre apart
From the
on the
theatre,
stage. So this was for Liverpool Playhouse, their centenary, and we created a piece that was, it was. So it happened all throughout the book. I mean, the Playhouse is such a funny building, and it's like, I mean, I grew up in Liverpool, so it's just kind of like the theatre I just know.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, there were lots of places I'd never been at.
Yeah.
Including they have the original box office, which you can't go in because it's like protected.
Wow.
But it's absolutely beautiful, you know, and it's like got all the kind of like little boxes that like very small women obviously had to like sit inside and post tickets in. And that was, I suppose, so that again was a sort of historical piece of work anyway, because we, you know, it felt like, okay, this is a piece to celebrate the centenary from the Liverpool Rep, which was started in 1911, to the kind of theatre of the current day. But I suppose also because I grew up in Liverpool, and you know, I know when the theatres closed, and there were like really dark times in Liverpool as well. So I sort of, I suppose, wanted to tell that story. So I think we also managed to tell a bit of the story of the socialist story. I think of you know, this is when the theatre's closed, and that sort of. I mean, we sort of walked through the theatre, through all backstage, met, you know, sort of moved through time, I suppose. So started in 1911, sort of with the sort of hangover of the music hall there, and we'd found, you know, there's a lot written about it, and so we sort of based some of it on real life, you know, people who I can't remember, Maud something, who was taken. I think she was a sort of like, you know, costume girl in the early days, and then basically became general manager of the theatre.
Yes.
So she sort of appeared throughout the story, but it was, but also I think there were moments, you know, moving through and kind of going, you know, sort of trying to tell the more radical times, because obviously the Playhouse then became this amazing kind of new writing theatre, and was really important for me, I think, growing up as, you know, a theatrical space, and also. But there were lovely. I mean, we worked again. I'm telling this in a very backward way, but we worked. Marcelo wrote, and me sort of wrote the core of it. But we were able to work with Chloe Moss and Jeff Young and Helen Blakeman, all like fantastic Liverpool writers, who obviously all have very personal connections to the theatre. And they were all sort of, you know, they were about the theatre, but they were about, I suppose, the nature of theatre as well. And like Jeff's will always stick in my mind, because there was a secret room just to to the stage left of the auditorium. You know, I mean, it's a sort of underneath a lighting rig or something. But he you know, wrote a little play about a guy who snuck in, who stole into the theatre in the 80s, because it was based on his memory of seeing Blood on the Dole, which is a play by Jim Morris, who and he wrote this beautiful play that was turned into a television play about being young and unemployed in Liverpool, and this made such a mark on like a teenage Jeff that he became a writer, and he's now this beautiful, very poetic, you know, wonderful, iconoclastic writer. So sort of stories like that, you know, it's like this is what Liverpool is, this is what theatre is, and actually I think that piece, because it was all about the writers and all about the new writing, and we are quite about storytelling, I think, with Highhearted, and that's, I think, you know, where I don't know where the immersive bit sort of fits in or not, and certainly I suppose in that piece we were very much in the theatre all the time, but I suppose being, again, it was that thing of being taken in different directions, and sort of suddenly ducking backstage and then kind of
those
out.
Spaces that are usually hidden.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of the fact that all of those things are hidden and kept secret from the audience, and those things that are kind of covered up
The magic,
are the magical places. And for me as a child, the thing that made me fall in love with the theatre were those other spaces, and the smells of the dressing rooms, and the dusty, the way the light was always sort of dusky in the back of the theatre, and the people that are kind of behind that stage space. It's always was the magic when I was a child, when I was, you know, when you're involved in a show where you're putting stuff on. They were the things that kind of stuck with me and
I think I mean
pushed me.
We finished that piece. It sort of took itself up to the present day, and then you sort of joined this trail of actors going down to the side of the stage. So we took everyone down. So you were literally sort of just next to the stage, and it was like, oh, actually, I sort of that really feels. And then we took everyone out by the dock doors, and that was a really beautiful moment, I think. And it was, and I think it was sort of. I mean, Liverpool is like a very special place, and emotions are very. You know, people are emotional, I think, and really care about things. And because it also, you know, there was a lot of celebrating going on at that time, because it was about a theatre. But it did feel like everyone really, really embraced that kind of good-hearted spirit of it, and was just sort of felt, you know, really happy to be there.
It's something that I'm quite interested in as well, is this idea of using performance as a way of capturing legacy and heritage. And it kind of feeds into all of those things. And I think for women, there's a really good reason why, when sort of live art was born in the kind of the 60s, that women kind of really took that on and were like, this gives me a voice, this gives me a platform to capture and tell my stories, and to kind of reassert myself into history in that way. And so projects like this, I think, are so important, because they use kind of performance as a way of capturing and re-performing and bringing to life that heritage and that legacy. So it really connects back with the communities who it belongs to. And so that's something that I'm kind of really excited. But again, it's that kind of shift, isn't it, from kind of being promenade and being outside, and then to coming and being kind of responding to that site. But it's not just the site, is it's responding to that psychogeography that makes up that site.
And you know, that sort of, I suppose in a way that was quite conscious. We had a character who, you know, sort of was our friend through the play, who, you know, he thought he was the idea was he thought he was in a dream, so he only had his pants on, but he thought he was having, like, you know, the actor's nightmare of where you're on stage and just your pants. But then at the end of the play, he realises he's awake and he's like, should be on stage. But we were able, sort of through him, I think, to talk a lot about the kind of echoes in those walls, and just those lives, and, you know, the kind of the sort of pressure and the wonder of treading over those spaces, I think, which is what site-specific work is about.
So one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about is this idea of the language that's being used at the moment. So immersive is being used as this kind of crazy catch-all that people seem to have just sort of latched onto. And I was in a really big meeting the other day with a load of people from creative technologies, and they use the same language to mean completely different things as well. So there's this kind of immersion in gaming and immersion in the creative technologies means something very different to potentially what it means in the theatre. So, and lots of work, whether we want it to be or not, at the moment seems to be pushed. I mean, when I started my PhD, I was writing about this kind of work, but I was not using the term immersive, and neither was anybody else. I was kind of saying interactive, participatory, kind of audience engagement or audience enabling, but immersion seems to have kind of blown up, taken over, and sort of catches us all under it. So we're bound to consider our relationship to that term, but also in the ways that it's so problematic, I think, for us. And I wanted you to kind of talk about where you think sort of promenade and site-specific sit in relation to this huge thing that sits over the top of us now.
I think it is fun, because I don't think I remember it being around.
No.
Like, definitely, it never occurred to us, like, when we started Highhearted, that our work would be that. And I suppose, and it, in a way, and I don't think this is entirely true, but it feels a little bit like, you know, it's a kind of great catch-all kind of publicity.
It does feel like a huge
because it sort of
tool.
captures a sort of secret cinema. And I think, you know, what Punch Drunk do, I think,
is probably immersive.
Yeah, and I think
agree.
Probably because they've become, you know, they're such a phenomenon, and sort of in a great way, you know, expanded theatre audiences, haven't they?
Yeah,
but I mean,
hugely.
I suppose to me, like, when we were sort of trying to work out what Highhearted was, we were like, well, immersive is sort of, I don't know, is it like a quite a highly designed space that you can transform? So you could go into a massive warehouse and turn it into, whatever,
this fictive space,
yeah.
isn't it? It's very much, I think immersion is very much about fictive.
Yeah, yes, I think so, yeah.
Spaces.
And I suppose that people can find their own path through that. I mean, I think Dream Think Speak is a company whose work I love. What was the piece I did in Brighton?
They kind of managed
yes.
to kind of capture fictive elements, but also in that kind of slightly more sort of critical frame with that sort of connection to material.
Yeah, and I think they, with their spaces, you are still very aware of the bones of the space that you're in.
Yeah.
And so I think we sort of settled on site responsive.
Yeah.
Because we were like, can you be slightly specific if you're also promenade? I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because the moment then you move it, and this is what we were talking about earlier, isn't it? If you take it out of that space, the space the site it was responding to.
Yeah.
And
also because, the very first piece we did was very specific to Brighton, but then we just did it again in London, and so we remade the specificity of that. So I think, I think I was thinking about this, like knowing I would be talking to you. and we have worked with designers, and on Macbeth we did, and that was really, really important. But with Highhearted, not so much, or more, I suppose, as a kind of a co-collaborator early on, more than a kind of idea of changing a space. So I think it has become about the relationship between the audience and the reframing of a space.
Yeah.
Which could be immersive, I suppose, because maybe it immerses you in a reality. You have to enter the story.
And I guess in some respects as well, I think about it a lot because I deliver it and I talk to people about it a lot and I write about it and make. So I think sometimes maybe kind of big immersive environments, of course, like Punch Drunk, Secret Cinema, those kind of things that you go into are immersive in that way. But maybe other work immerses you in yourself in a way that you can reconsider it within a different context. I don't know. Because
I suppose with Punch Drunk, you become, they give you a mask, don't they? So you sort of become, and I think that's brilliant because you don't see the audience, I suppose, and you become.
Yes, you just become a part, an extent, a material part of that fictive world.
And I think something we've always questioned is like, who are the audience? If the performers are talking directly to the audience, who are they? And most often we sort of settle on the audience. They're the people watching a play because we're doing a play. But I think that's something that is problematic in a good way. I think in a kind of that's something to work out. I think. But because obviously, like seeing other people looking at each other and watching a performance, you don't believe that you're not being transformed somewhere, but you're creating an experience together, I suppose, and so you have to find a way that they could be part of the space.
So that brings me to talk about Macbeth, which I did come and participate in Clapham. The guy who plays Sherlock's enemy in the TV series was actually at the performance.
Yes!
I always forget his name.
Andrew Scott. Because,
that's it. It's really distinctive.
His sister, isn't it? Who is a very wonderful actress in her own right.
That does explain that then.
Yes.
Because I argued with my partner on the way home. I was like, it really was. He was like, no, it wouldn't be. I was like, it was. It really was.
It was very exciting.
And when I went to see a version of Hamlet at Riverside? Must have been at Riverside a very long time ago. Benedict Cumberbatch was stood next to me because Dominic. I always forget his name as well, but he was in it. So I was like, every time I go to something that's immersive.
You should have come on last night because we have Vivienne Westwood in the audience.
Oh wow!
Because she lives on, and she wrote this. Like I think, I don't know if it was a review, but it was my favourite review I've ever had because it was a sort of illustrated journal.
Wow!
It was really amazing. It was a really just like describing her experience of it. So we were all quite fascinated.
That's fabulous.
But yeah.
So what was it like working with that already established text, which again was a kind of shift, wasn't it? And that site. So did the site drive your process, or did that text?
I think what happened first? They were both, I suppose, to a certain extent, given to me.
Yeah.
So it was not an inherited production, but I suppose Omnibus, we knew at Omnibus there was going to be a production of Macbeth.
Yeah.
Because we needed a kind of classic text.
Yeah.
And I think when it sort of came to me, Marie, who's the artistic director, we talked about it being Promenade, and then at some point it got delayed because I think originally it was going to be in the spring, and then we were like, it's going to be November, can we still do it? And I was like, yeah. Let's do it.
It wasn't too cold.
Because I think always it was like when you've got a building that looks onto a common and you're doing Macbeth, you can't ignore that. And it was, there were definitely, kind of ambitious plans to do it all outdoors at one point, but that couldn't happen. So I think, I think they sort of came together quite organically, I suppose, those ideas. Neither, I feel like, not that I didn't have a choice in it, but that they kind of came to me. So I think, and then it was sort of finding a way and finding a world that they could sit within, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, I think because I've quite usually worked with narrative.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily a stretch, a kind of different experience to work with that text. I mean, definitely taking on a Shakespearean text and a big Promenade performance was probably too much. It was very ambitious.
Yeah.
And for that, and I'm really, really proud of that production. I'm really proud that we went for it, because I think in a way, Omnibus was, in early days at that point, and it felt like let's do a massive, ridiculously ambitious production, because we need people to,
and it was well attended, wasn't it? And it pretty much sold out most of the time.
So I think it was the right thing to do then, and it was worth just like going, right, we're just gonna hell for leather for it, because we sort of wanted to announce ourselves, I think, a bit, and I think we did.
And you still would engaging in some of those things, which is, I mean, I end up in Clapham, I don't know how, all the time, either Clapham or Common or Clapham Junction, and so that reframing of that such familiar space through a text as well that is so familiar because of its its canon and those characters, I think actually isn't so different from some of those earlier things that you've been working with.
No, I don't. And I think it was sort of in some ways a kind of
so cute,
a logistical exercise of like, where are the spaces we can use in the building, and where can we use on the common, and that was a lot of in practical terms, a lot of talking to different people and finding the spaces that we could use. Actually, it was a really good production.
She's like
raps to that. And I think there were, even before I think we'd sort of hit on like what exactly the world was, I know there were places like the kind of the fire escape at the back. I was
yes,
definitely, like Lady Macbeth has to be there reading the letter, and there's a window in the studio theatre, although we didn't really use it as a theatre. That was like, this is where she's in the sleepwalking scene. You have to sort of see the light coming from behind there. So there were sort of those. I really did want to try and use the building because it was. I mean, I was thinking we probably couldn't do it now because it's so much more advanced as a theatre building.
Yes.
But at the time, it was still, slightly in kind of like work in progress. So we were able to kind of do stuff with spaces, like fill a room with leaves, that I'm not sure we would be able to do now. So it was like good timing in that way. But I think I was thinking about whether it was immersive and how that worked, and thinking, I feel like with Macbeth, which is a text, I mean, it's so good. He was really good when he was writing that,
Yeah, I know. It's just the weird sisters. And Lady Macbeth is just one of those most iconic female. Yeah. Because there are so few great female roles.
I think that's it. Yeah, and I think I was really conscious, I suppose, that the kind of the witches, I suppose, in a way dictate or tell you, what's the world of the play.
Yeah.
And then you sort of have this human struggle, which is Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, and you can't really separate them, I think. Yeah. And I think I always knew, I don't want to have a Lady Macbeth who's the kind of vicious demon, because I don't really believe in
I
her,
don't
you
either,
know.
yeah.
I don't think that's what she is, and you have to sort of, it's so much more interesting to sort of work out what's going on between them. And I remember Jenny, who played Lady Macbeth, at her audition, talking about a study that some clever academic had done of Shakespeare's heroines, or I don't know if she's a heroine, female characters, and sort of put them into different groups depending on like where they shared characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other woman in the same group as Lady Macbeth is Juliet, because they're completely instinctive characters.
Yes.
They act on whim and instinct, so that
They
something
react,
happens and
don't
they do
they?
something.
They do something.
And they're really, really dynamic, kind of more so than I guess their male counterparts.
Yes.
I thought that was
very
so
much
interesting,
so.
so
Yeah,
interesting.
That is interesting.
And was that was sort of quite, you know, meaningful, I think, in how the character developed with Jenny playing her, because we just thought she's this, that whole world was about surviving. You know, it was a sort of post-civilization world, I think, where we thought, you know, you have to, which sort of was about, you know, a capitalist system in a way, and that you have to have some kind of power in order to survive, otherwise you just fall by the way. So the stakes of kind of killing the king were so much about just surviving, I think, and kind of getting the next thing. And we sort of wanted to see that desperation, I think, in her.
Well, I think, I mean, I felt that we had all of those kind of access to the inside of those characters in that world in a way that we wouldn't have if we had kind of sat and watched it in the dark. But also then that journey from the station to the omnibus and through those kind of first scenes and being with those characters was that whole kind of reframing and locating it kind of within that site as well. So for me, it kind of had sort of both of those different things happen, like going on at the same time in those parts. So I thought that was, and for me, the smell. I remember very distinctly the smell of the omnibus at that time, and that was really evocative. Really evocative.
Kind of really, I've got it now. Actually, that sort of dusty, misty. And it was a real
so distinctive in that space as well, and you could see the dust in the air, in the lights, and there was something I thought it was very powerful, very tangible about that for me.
I mean, I think that's interesting, because I think we were conscious of kind of going, we're slightly changing the space, but actually Omnibus as it is now is a perfect bunker, you know. Kind of like so let's really use that sort of the kind of the not completeness of it, the kind of I mean, we sort of wanted the idea, I think, especially with that coming, so you had sort of quite a long time outside, didn't you, and then you came in and where Lady Macbeth sort of greeted everyone. And this idea that, they probably inhabit, one small room of this vast kind of bunker, because they can't afford to heat it. So just uncovering, taking off all the dust sheets and kind of desperately trying to make it look like a nice place to live, which it just like never did. Just then the horrible banquet with the kind of the spam and everything. It's always like,
So one of the difficulties with kind of all of the kind of work you make is that there are audience in some respects. They are the joy and also present a challenge. So what kind of challenges have you come across in terms of rehearsal and getting things off the ground? Sometimes when you're extremely reliant on audiences to one extent or another, and then have there been moments when audience have just behaved in really errant ways that you couldn't possibly have imagined?
Well, I mean the first part of that question, I always think it's really funny, because I'm aware that when I'm rehearsing like a promenade piece, I look like a huge fan. I look like a crazy fan carrying around, like following these actors around with a notebook, and these actors are sort of just rehearsing, and there's this strange woman just pursuing them, like pretending, and always, have this kind of like sort of really like desperate smile on my face, so they feel like really supported. So it is really strange, I think, being like directing a piece of promenade work outdoors where you really can't, you don't know what audiences are going to do, but you just know that you're looking at it in the best possible way.
Absolutely.
And you sort of just want, there's so much, I think, when you're watching it, it's like, please stand there, stand there, please don't stand there. And you can't ever make them do that. And like, I think it's funny because my dad because he's wonderful. Comes to like I think everything I've done, and like actors are always like, your dad is the best audience member ever, because he just stands there.
Does what he's told.
But yeah, I mean, definitely, I think audiences have done strange things. I'm thinking actually the piece we did in Liverpool, and this sort of this had a really interesting knock-on effect, and sort of made us think about the next piece we wanted to make, and because one of the performances, well, the piece in Liverpool, just because it was the least wheelchair accessible, mobility accessible piece ever. Yeah, it went, spaces, in tiny staircases, up, just there was no way you could have got a wheelchair around. And one of our performances, because I think it was for a lot of kind of donors, I would say we're 90% over 85.
Okay.
And we're brilliant and really wanted to be there and followed it around, and we were definitely at no point deterred. But it took forever. And I remember there's one bit where you kind of led everyone up to the top of the stairs, and at this point you were kind of led up by one actor, and then at another point another one would seamlessly come in and sort of collect them and take them and whisk them off backstage. And all of these people, all of the mostly older women, got to the top of the stairs, turned a sharp right, and just sat down at all the tables there. And just sat there.
Oh no!
And we were like, no, you have to go. And we just weren't. They were like, no, this is the point where we have a little sit down. And it's like, okay, fine.
No break.
And with that as well, because we were on like quite tight timeline, because they had a main house show. So that was something where we thought, how can you do Promenade Theatre for people who have mobility problems? Because actually, people who come and see Promenade Theatre, quite often a bit older than the average theatre audience, I think.
Yeah.
Like maybe not immersive, but promenade, because I think there's something about you get a walk and you get a piece of theatre. Yeah. And we've always found that with our pieces. So that is sort of something that has tapped into
it's a big challenge. I'm thinking about it at the moment as well, is how do I make something accessible when it's in a challenging space or it requires actions and acts to be committed as well, is how do you do that? And we're starting to think about how we potentially build two slightly different kind of performances around the same thing, but one that is kind of explicitly built to be accessible, and then one, but then that's problematic as well in itself. So it's all, and I think it's really challenging,
because you always have these journeys between locations. So I think we were thinking, can you make the journey just more part of the performance anyway? Yeah. But it's all quite expensive, because you need a fleet of segways or something. Yeah, which would be amazing.
Exactly.
Or like sort of
golf buggies.
Yeah, I mean the idea
that would be amazing.
I'm still going to do is like our Stanner Stairlift ballet, which we have.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
But no, it's. I mean, I think pace is a really tricky thing in Promenade Theatre, because obviously when you're rehearsing it, I'm marching around. I'm like,
absolutely, of course, because we're like boom, 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 straight through it.
And then, any audience will add 20 minutes on at least. And it can be really painful, but it's stupid not to accept that. And so I think with Macbeth, probably, we did end up building quite a lot of extra bits in, especially the outside section.
Yes, because it's actually quite. It's not a huge distance, but it's far enough.
It was far enough, and we had like 90 in those, which was too many, really.
Trying to move them around.
Yeah, and because people really want to look at things.
You're so cute.
I remember actually we did a piece for Greenwich and Docklands Festival. Which was kind of interesting for us, because I think it showed us, we were like, this is where, whatever is the work that we do, it's quite different from festival work, because it's like, I think the stuff that really works at festivals is kind of quite often amplified and is static.
Yes.
And we were doing this kind of very esoteric, sort of like leading around, like non-mic'd, sort of intricate storytelling narrative piece. And we've been rehearsing it for weeks in this park with no one else there. And then suddenly we're like, oh, there's 6 other performances happening at the same time, and they've all got speakers.
Hundreds and hundreds of people,
and then that was a kind of, I remember one performance where we sort of used the whole park and we were leading people down. And then I realised that one was telling us we couldn't go there because a guy had collapsed
no.
like on the playground, or we were going to go. So we had to sort of, but they didn't tell our other actors. So one of our actors was stranded over the other side of the park, and it was all awful. And we had to do it sort of basically in one spot under a tree. And then I saw the guy who had allegedly had a heart attack leaving the park with his wife. And I was like,
oh no!
But we had to stop for an ambulance to go down, and so that was like when the promenade stops promenading.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I don't think the audience necessarily.
Well, it's fragile, isn't it? This is the interesting thing about this work, although it's very robust in certain ways. Actually, real world implications can dissolve it in a second.
Really, yeah.
As well.
Yes.
Which I think is so interesting, and you know that fragility because you know you're in the real. Yeah. You're not in a set. You're not.
No.
In that kind of environment that's pulled apart from the everyday, and so it has to be fragile.
Yeah.
For you to want to play and to feel safe playing in that environment. Yeah. To know that if anything, if real world consequences start to become a possibility, then it can be broken in a second. And
and you can't. I don't think you can. You can do anything to kind of protect against that. Actually.
No, of course not.
And I think with that, I remember crying behind a tree.
Yes.
But it was all right. But I think with Macbeth, it was slightly more. I think like some people are like, it's always Clapham Common. You've got everyone like all the cars and the traffic and people going out. But I sort of liked that. I liked that there was this sort of liminality of, that you were treading your path, and there was a lot of kind of rowdy nightlife, but it's sort of.
It kind of played in with that.
Yeah,
as well,
I think you could still believe, I'm in this world, and I think with the witches, I sort of felt quite pleased about that because we wanted people who were outsiders.
That was my favourite.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Oh, good. Because I think you didn't. They did become invisible because we wanted them to look like the kind of people who your eyes slide over.
Yeah.
And I've got a picture actually of, I think it was the Saturday matinee, of our three witches sort of pre-show sat on like a log, and there were just another 4 guys dressed exactly the same as them who you were just standing near them, so they looked
it looked like their part.
All of them, and you like mutually had sort of gone, this is where people like us stand
sitting at the moment.
And it was like that actually that sort of that invisibility really works,
and it's that kind of liminality spilling, isn't it, over, and that's exciting, I think, as well. So what are you up to at the moment? Obviously you're being a mum right now as well, so that is probably takes up a lot of your time and energy, but are you working on anything at the moment?
Well, we've got a sort of ongoing project with Highhearted that started as a work in progress in 2015, and has, because of funding, is sort of being delayed, but we're hoping will happen in the summer. And that, interestingly, actually, what we were talking about before, this is taking place, well, the work in progress took place in St Giles in the Fields Church, which is in central London at the end of Denmark Street.
Yes.
And there's this really kind of interesting area of regeneration and redevelopment, and the old meets the new, because Denmark Street is being redeveloped. There's Centrepoint, there's Crossrail, Google built, like everything is happening there. And then there's this beautiful, beautiful church that's been there since like the 11th century. So we started it because we were sort of interested in looking at that issue, which seems so present in London, and I think but particularly in London for everyone. Yes. This kind of like everything's being redeveloped out of all our price ranges. So we're all being
watching all this amazing stuff go up around you. And this is probably means I'm going to have to move.
Exactly, and like particularly in an area like that, which I think historically has been really neglected, and where all the down and outs were, but has like there's a lot of residential place, there's a lot of social housing there, but it sort of has this reputation, it's very commercial and corporate, and we were sort of interested in something political to say about that, and also that idea of, I suppose, can people who are on really opposite sides of a social political spectrum, can you find a common ground? Because of this whole social media, and were really affected, I think, by the second election, 2015, wasn't it? Where it was like, oh no, there wasn't a revolution. It's here to stay.
It's going ahead.
And this thing of everyone kind of really nailing their colours. Facebook has sort of stopped being about cats and stuff, and it's sort of now like, this is my political point of view.
Yes,
this is mine.
Well, it's really about establishing kind of an identity in relation to national identity and kind of locating yourself.
Definitely,
within
yes.
a
and kind
sphere
of
in that.
This is what I agree with. And so we were like, is there a sort of what's, and I completely understand that, and I'm probably the same, but I suppose like what's the humanity? What's the kind of the inconsistencies within that? So it's and we wanted to look at the form as well, and we wanted to work with a composer as well. So this is a play with songs.
Oh wow!
With two characters who are from these different sort of side, who have an encounter in the church, and they're both in a sort of moment of crisis.
Well, churches are such liminal sites in themselves, anyway, aren't they?
So
Within
amazing.
those communities that do bring, historically have always brought people from very different social spheres to. I wouldn't say be equal in that space historically, but I think
but to sort of commune or communicate.
Yes, exactly.
And I think we were interested. Where are the public and private spaces in London now? And what do we think of as what is a church space? Because I'm not at all religious. And it's really eye-opening rehearsing in that church, because they're so well. They would just come in, do some art, create it. And being in that space was like, this is a really friendly space. And if you come in, no one bothers you. There were lots of guys just keeping warm, sleeping on the pews. It's free. It's got Wi-Fi. There's a loo. No one's trying to recruit you or anything. Yeah. And it was like and then you kind of step out and you're like, there's like a million coffee shops and everything. So we were kind of really interested in like what spaces have become, because where are they in central London now? Where can you go to be warm and not pay money?
Very few places.
And also, feel connected to people, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that, and so we also thought there's something maybe kind of mischievous about doing a really small political musical in the heart of the West End as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially in the face of such huge, box office sales and huge bums on seats to see those kind of big, polished, kind of West End reproducible shows.
Yes, absolutely. So that was a work in progress, and we're hoping to sort of just write a bit more, put a few more songs in.
Great.
I mean, that's interesting, because that's raised all these other questions of like, well, this isn't promenade, is it? Because everyone's sitting down, and actually this thing of you do a piece in a church, and I've always kind of really liked working with unconventional spaces where you're sort of looking around and where am I going. And actually, in a church, there's really only like one good place to look, and the audience, you can mess around with it and try, but actually, it's very clearly telling you where to sit and where to look.
Yeah.
So what I really want to do before we go into like a rehearsal period is try and do some work on how can the performers be promenade, because it seems difficult for the audience to be promenade.
But also, I think actually what you're doing is, because the site is used for something very different in kind of the everyday.
Yeah.
It's a liminal site within itself, but then reframing it again as a liminal site potentially of performance.
Yes, yeah.
That is still in some ways dealing with those same kind of fundamental aspects that you deal with in promenade and in site responsive work.
I think so.
As well, because it still it's using that site, which is not a theatrical kind of site.
And people have really strong feelings about walking into churches. I mean, I was just overwhelmed by how non-religious it was. But the guy he was doing, our stage manager, he was like, I can't walk there because there's a grave there, and I don't know like what I'm doing, and I don't know how to behave in this space. And I'm really freaked out because and I found it really, really welcoming.
Yes.
But that was kind of part of the consideration of how do you bring the audience in actually became a massive thing, and what do you give them as soon as they sit down? It's making that invitation, isn't it, to that site and that space.
Yeah. In its refunctioning rather than its kind of original functioning.
Yeah.
So that is challenging.
Yeah.
So if people would like to keep an eye on what you're up to and hopefully come and support your work, where's the best way for them to keep hold of that information or to access it?
Good question. We're very bad at all our stuff. We do have a website, and I think probably
Which is highhearted.com.
which is highhearted.com.
Yeah.
And I think like my Twitter is more active than the Highhearted. Our idea is to put to do a mini site for
Brilliant. Okay. For the project.
For the project. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm even doing my own website at the moment, but
Great.
But we are.
So if they find Gemma Kerr on Twitter, they're probably more
They're
likely to be able to access
they'll get close.
information.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. That's the close.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming all the way down to Portsmouth
we like an expedition.
to talk to me on this very chilly day.
Lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been lovely having you both here. So thank you for talking to me, and I'm sure this won't be the last time either. So I wish you a very Merry Christmas as we head into December now. So it's exciting and excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this month's episode. As ever, I would love to hear from you. Your thoughts, comments, feedback, questions, anything really, even where you're listening from would be fabulous. I love hearing from everybody who's listening. You can find us in various places on social media and online. Our Twitter handle is @TAIT Podcast, TAIT Podcast. We have a Facebook page, which you can find by searching TAIT. We're on YouTube and on Google+. You can also find us through my website, which is www.joannabucknell.co.uk. That's Joanna with an A and Bucknell with an A. If you use an E, you probably won't find us. Or you can contact me directly on email using Talking About Immersive Theatre, I know it's long, @gmail.com. So that's talkingaboutimmersivetheatre@gmail.com. Please do share with anyone you think might be interested. The more the merrier. You can subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on YouTube. And lastly, it would be really fabulous if you could leave us a review on iTunes. That would be brilliant, and I would be super happy. So we have lots of exciting things coming up. They're a little bit hush-hush right now, so I can't share too many details. But the only way you're going to find out about them is if you stay tuned in or follow me on Twitter. So until next month, bye.